that kind of, this is a question that just came up in my head right now is,
Hmm.
when it comes to like, married, uh, husband and wife,
Hmm.
let's say, because, you're talking about how there should be is there, do you think it's wise for a husband to share, and how much should they share about their struggle with this issue with their wife?
Hmm.
Because I've heard stories of how it can go really bad.
It can.
Yeah, the wife never could. She didn't even imagine that my husband struggled with this, and it just devastates. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, how would you guide or counsel in that situation, or
You
would you
know,
encourage the husband to?
here's the thing. Spouses and partners will receive that information differently from one another.
Mhm.
Um, like there are some people who would be so traumatized, like they may think that their husband is a saint, and they believe that not only is their husband a saint, but just the only person for them, uh, the only person fit for them is someone who would never have an issue with something like that.
Mhm.
So if they have that belief and then their husband now unloads a dumpster full of information about their history, maybe even their current struggles, um, yeah, that's going to be devastating for
Mhm.
this person. Now, if the spouse does not believe that, if the spouse really does believe in the far reaching effects of original sin, if this person realizes that every person is sexually broken, including themselves, it may
Mm.
not come in the form of sexual addiction. It may
Mhm.
come in the form of other things, such as um, maybe the way that they approach sex. Like maybe they feel like, oh, if I invite my husband to have sex with me, then I'm
Mm.
uh, um, I don't know, I'm dirty,
Mm.
or I'm
Mm.
whatever. Like they're gonna have their own tainted view of sin. Sorry, of sex because of sin.
Mhm.
So if this if this spouse already understands that sexual brokenness is universal, then if the addict or if the person struggling with the porn confesses that, then they're going to be able to handle that information much, much better.
Mhm.
But this is the thing that happens a lot is um, we don't know, like, we don't know what our spouse's stance is. We don't talk about it. So I think it would be good to actually talk about it, to say, what
Mm.
is your stance about sexual brokenness?
Mm.
What do you think about this stat that says 65%, if not more, of men um, um, self-reporting in the church have some sort of sexual addictive behavior? Like, what do you
Mhm.
think about this stat?
Mhm.
And they think, oh my gosh, like bunch of perverts. If they have this real self-righteous kind of view about it, then it's not going to go well when they share
Mhm.
that thing. And if that's the
Mhm.
case, that that spouse is going to need, I think, some real additional support
Mhm.
when they do get this dumpster truck full of information.
Yeah.
um, there's also something called staggered disclosure. And staggered disclosure is where you say to, you disclose to somebody, yeah, so last year I viewed porn once. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again.
Mhm.
And the person's like, oh my gosh, you did? Oh, well, I mean, they kind of, she works through that and she's like, okay, fine, I forgive you, that kind of thing, right? But then she finds out that it wasn't just once last year, it was also
Mm.
like 5 times the year before that,
Mhm.
and that he's also been texting with another woman, and that he's been, you know going to massage parlors and whatever. And so the staggered disclosure means you're giving the person this disclosure in snippets,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And each time a new piece of information comes out, whether it's disclosed voluntarily or whether the wife becomes a detective and starts fishing this information out,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, she's going to be traumatized every single time, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I thought we were done with this. I thought
Mm-hmm.
you had told me everything. You told me that was everything. And like, I know, I was trying to protect you. I was trying to, I didn't want to, make you feel bad about me and, whatever. But really what that person is doing is protecting themselves. And what we advise is if you're going to disclose anything at all, disclose it all,
Mm.
you know. But again, if you're dumping this dumpster truck onto them and they've got no support for themselves, that's just
Yeah.
unethical, man. That's just like this person recommended form of support is, um, you know, like not not other women in the church who are going to say, "Oh my gosh, what a reprobate," like
Mhm.
what an awful person. I'm talking about a therapist who understands betrayal trauma as well as sexual addiction,
Mm.
because this
Mm.
therapist can prep her for a lot of different questions that maybe she wasn't even thinking about, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
can process this with her. Like, um, many couples can get through this. Many people, uh, after the initial impact of this trauma, they can really get through this. But I can help you get through that. But
Mhm.
I just want to be able to check in with you periodically, regularly, to make sure that you are handling this information okay. Um, most sisters at the church don't have that level of training to be able to do that for them.
Yeah. Mhm.
So uh, to answer your question, yes, I do think that it is good, not necessarily as a confessional, but really as a way to, number one, um, um, stop the pattern of
Mm.
deception,
Mm.
stop the pattern of like lies. And I think number two, it actually opens the gateway to true intimacy,
Mm.
um, where you can be known fully
Mhm.
as God knows you fully and
Mhm.
still gives you Christ.
Mm.
And if the spouse, um, can know you fully and kind of get over that initial anger and disappointment and sadness and everything, and even maybe their own shame, it's like once she's able to extend acceptance and love to this person, especially if they're doing their work of sobriety, then it's like, wow, I really now have nothing to hide from my wife.
Mhm.
And that is really uh, the last barrier for true intimacy to happen, because we just keep too many secrets from our spouse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. I think, yeah, in sharing with your wife, it can go one or two ways. I feel like it can
Hmm.
actually perpetuate shame and guilt and lead us deeper into the sin of pornography,
Hmm.
or it can present an opportunity or like an invitation for us to, rehearse the gospel, reenact the
Yeah,
gospel,
yeah.
and invite them into our struggle, and ask them to pray, and ask them to, yeah, be in the battle with us.
What you said, that first point is really key. It may perpetuate that shame. And so that's why I think this disclosure is probably best after this person has had at least, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 months of sobriety under their belt.
Mm.
Like not just white knuckling it, but real sobriety that comes under the guidance of someone who, understands sex addiction,
Yeah.
right? That way, when they're sharing, um, when the wife has her most likely awful reaction, he's already learned how to deal with that amount of shame in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because, man, what happens if he shares it prematurely? You know, he's not really anchored, and she has this volcanic reaction, and
Mm-hmm.
he in turn goes back to the porn or back to
Yeah.
the affair partner, whatever it is, as a way to deal with that shame. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
over. I mean,
Yeah.
that's game over. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good for him to be kind of already on track in his own recovery process before that formal disclosure happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. I'm going to combine kind of two questions.
Mhm.